Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 40 of the In From Japan podcast, the podcast where we talk about the latest news on Japan-developed games and other things in relation to them. Available on Spotify, Podbean, and YouTube. As always, I'm your host, Erroll Moss, and with me is my co-host, the phenomenon from Suriname, Jason Corder.
Hey, hey.
And like always, we're just going to talk about the Japanese games, or sometimes it's also the Japanese inspired games we've been playing. So I'll start because I don't have a lot. I've been playing a little more Genshin Impact. I unlocked multiplayer, so I played a little with a friend, and we just went to he showed me this secret island where you can unlock a secret boss, although the secret boss was just like one of those wind enemies, just at a higher level. But it was just a neat little thing. We had to use Kaya and ice our way across the ocean
To make a bridge
to get there. Yeah. And that was fun, but that's all I've really done so far. I feel like I kind of got bored of Genshin once I unlocked multiplayer. Just like, maybe it's something about like lack of enemy variety or something else. I don't know.
Are you doing the missions?
I mean, I did a couple missions. I didn't do much after I did that multiplayer thing. I haven't played it since then. Because I haven't felt like playing it after that. I'm like, well, I tried the multiplayer a little bit and that was cool, but now I'm just kind of like, So I don't know if I'm just kind of done with it, or I'm gonna just unlock more stuff later. Like maybe I'll pick it up again at some point.
Okay, so what do you want the game to give you to spark that interest back up?
I don't know. See, that's what I have a hard time figuring out. Because I don't even know really why I'm like feel bored of it in the first place. It could just be general video game fatigue. It could be with all the other games coming out that aren't necessarily Japanese games, but I'm still like super interested in playing them. It could be a number of things.
Okay. I mean, have you felt this way with other free-to-play games?
I mean, I haven't played most free-to-play games as much as I've played Genshin.
Okay.
Because usually the free-to-play games I've played are the ones that are like Apex or like Spellbreaker. You know, the ones that are primarily multiplayer. So it's a little different because I'm not that into multiplayer games unless it's something more akin to Genshin Impact. So I don't know. I just think I'm just like just kind of overwhelmed with a lot of different stuff at the moment.
Okay.
That's probably all.
I mean, that sounds fair. Pretty 2020 of you to say that.
Yeah.
Well, I haven't really been playing it because my brother has some free time now, and he has been pouring in the hours playing Ace Combat 7, which, from what I can tell, looks very neat. Fun from his reaction. I haven't played it myself, so I can't speak from first-hand experience, but it looks fun enough. But with Star Wars Squadrons recently being released, I'm kind of like, will I play this game or will I play the similar game but in space? Decisions.
Yeah, I'm not into shooters, but with how not shooters, but like flight sim. Is that what Squadrons would technically be? Space combat sims, I guess.
Well, just say flight combat.
It does interest me a little bit because of how good people are saying it is.
The thing I like about Squadrons is that it has a tactical nature to the battles. It's not just you have a gun on your ship, or you have missiles, or you have like larger bombs. It's more like, okay, where do you allocate resources to? Your shield, your thrusters, your blasters, and that mixed with flying and being aware of other types of ships and your other enemy types of ships, which could be a lot of fun. But moving on to Japanese or Japanese inspired games, I've been playing Chrono Trigger, which I got during the recent Square Enix sale on Steam. It was $7.99 if I'm not mistaken, which is a pretty good deal. It plays like a dream in comparison to the mobile version, because the mobile version, it's just...
Well, now it does, because didn't have a lot of problems originally, the PC release?
A few years ago, sure, but they cleaned it up and patched it up. I haven't run into any issues. It is the same pixelated game I remember from my SNES days, or... of my years prior to this. It functions well. It plays well. It's a lot of nostalgic goodness. It's a solid RPG. It doesn't really ask that much of you. You just go in there. There aren't really random battles. The story is pretty light and fun. Kind of has a Dragon Quest bend to the storytelling.
I'm not surprised.
Well, it is just the beginning stages of the story, so it might get a bit darker later on, but I'm enjoying it. The problem I had with the mobile version is the game was designed for D-pads, but on your phone screen you have this digital analog, and that doesn't translate well to the movements, because every third step you'd make was running into a wall or running into an NPC, and then you have to readjust, and you have to it's just a whole lot of work and not that fun. So I bought it on Steam without much shame, which is kind of a rarity for me, because I don't double dip into games. This is probably the first time I double dipped.
I have something to say about, because I had recently double dipped on something too.
Okay, what was that?
No, go ahead. Finish what you were saying.
No, I was just gonna say it's a rarity for me to double dip, but I think Chrono Trigger being one of the best, if not the best JRPG, I think double dipping is warranted.
Yeah. I double dipped on, well, I have it digitally on PS4, but I've barely played it. Metal Wolf Chaos, because it was like $6 at Best Buy. And I was like, oh, well, I wanted a physical copy of this game anyway. I don't usually do that.
Did you play it, at least the digital one?
Yeah. Like, I haven't finished it. I was still pretty early on, but like, it's more for the novelty of that game. Because it's ridiculous.
What is ridiculous?
It's ridiculous. Have you seen Metal Wolf Chaos?
I've seen the trailers, and I know some of it. I mean, it is pretty much. What if the U.S. presidency was an anime filled with mechs and full-on bravado?
President was the bad guy.
Yeah.
Or something.
I mean, it's pretty realistic concerning 2020.
Well, no.
I kid.
I wouldn't. Not exactly.
I kid.
But yeah, no. I was like, I never do this, but I wanted the physical anyway. So whatever.
Okay.
That's all I had to say about that.
All right. Oh, I've also been playing Tales of Crestoria again on mobile. I might drop it. Not again? Because the game. Yeah, I guess again. Well, the first time I dropped it was because my phone back then, my LG G6, wasn't running it well. Now I have a OnePlus 7T, which could probably run it and other games at a good level consistently, but it's come to the point where I have to ask myself, do I want to play a grindy RPG on my phone while I have literal multitudes of games to play in my backlog, including RPGs? And it's a tough decision to make, because on the one hand, I love the Tales series. The gacha elements aren't that aggressive. You do run into a wall in a story pretty early on where you then have to grind and level up. And I feel like grinding and leveling up in an RPG is kind of a relic. There are smarter ways to go about that. But I might drop it because I don't feel the need to grind an RPG on my phone. That's probably killing my battery life. I'd probably be investing that time in any of the other RPGs I already own. So we'll see.
Okay, so moving on to the J list. We have two pieces. The J list recent video game related entertainment news. We have two pieces of news for this section. First, we have Level 5 announces manga-focused creative communication website Manga 5. Service begins October 15th. This is by Saruman over at Gamatsu. Level 5 has announced Manga 5, a manga-focused creative communication website that will begin service on October 15th. According to the company, Manga 5 is a place where users can share and support passionate works regardless of whether professional or amateur. It is a new challenge that stems from the desire to create new entertainment together and share a real-time feeling different from offered by video games. What? That doesn't sound right. Manga 5 will be equipped with a 5 workshop community where users can freely show off their works to each other, and regular Manga 5 manga contests based on various themes will be held. The service will also feature 9 completely original serialized manga only available on the website. High Score Girl manga creator Rensuke Oshikiri's serialized work and voice actor Jun Fukuyama's original work will also be posted, and video content is also planned. So, this is interesting.
The manga service?
Yes.
Okay, what do you find interesting of it?
Well, just because like Level 5 is like, we have an announcement, but it's not necessarily video game related, and I'm like, what, like a new movie or something? Or like, I thought like maybe a streaming service, but I'm like, no, Level 5 doesn't have enough anime for that.
Well, a manga is a certain kind of streaming service.
Yeah, no, so this is a streaming service, but I mean like a video streaming service. But this is interesting. It'll be interesting to see if they maybe like there's a really like popular manga on this app and then they decide to make a game out of it or something. Who knows?
Well, it's a good service because it's going to be hosting a lot of fan-made content. Or doujinshi, probably you'd want to call it, and also Level 5 owned stuff.
And they already have manga based on their stuff. Yokai Watch, Professor Layton, I believe, probably Inazuma 11.
But my question
Snack
would
World,
be,
I'm guessing, has one too.
Why do your own specific content service instead of partnering up with any of the other services? Because this is a thing that's going to keep happening, where companies who have a very prominent media presence are going to want to have their own service. And with the idea that they might get a percentage of the pie, mind share and money, but there's only so much attention to spread around. And with stuff like Shonen Jump and by extension Viz, and now Bookwalker and Kodansha or Kadokawa, it's kind of I kind of feel like they're starting a race with a disadvantage. And I might be wrong. There might be diehard level 5 fans there who are just clamoring for this service, and that will keep them afloat.
I don't know. But I feel like level 5 is just doing whatever and to see if anything sticks right now. Because they're in such a weird spot. They have been for the past few years. They've been, besides Ni no Kuni, they've been in like a weird spot, it seems like.
Well, I think the thing, what I've noticed, at least from Japan, is when you launch a product, you're going to want to merchandise it. You're going to want to have an anime series, a manga series, toys, plushies, merchandising deals with fast food restaurants, all to kind of make back the money you put into production. Because making stuff is expensive. Making media is even more expensive. Best of luck to them.
I'm curious to see how it turns out. And next on the J list we have Resident Evil Origin Story reboot, cast Jill Valentine, Leon Kennedy, Claire Redfield, and more. This is from IGN, and it's by Matt T.M. Kim. The Resident Evil Origin Story movie has cast nearly all of its major leads, including actors for Jill Valentine, Chris Redfield, Claire Redfield, Leon S. Kennedy, and Albert Wesker. This is yet another adaptation of Capcom's survival horror series, separate from a planned Netflix show. Production firm Constantin Film and writer-director Johannes Roberts announced the cast for its Resident Evil Origin Story. Set in 1998 on a fateful night in Raccoon City, the Resident Evil movie will star Kaya Scodelario from The Maze Runner as Claire Redfield, Hannah John Kamen from Ant-Man and the Wasp as Jill Valentine, Robbie Amell from Upload as Chris Redfield, Tom Hopper from The Umbrella Academy as Albert Wesker, Avin Jogia from Zombieland Double Tap, and also from Victorious. Don't ask me how I know that. As Leon S. Kennedy.
There's no shame in knowing that. Calm down.
I was a big Victorious fan back in the day. And Neil McDonough from Yellowstone as William Birkin. According to director Johannes Roberts in a statement, I really wanted to go back to the original first two games and recreate the terrifying visceral experience I had when I first played them, whilst at the same time telling a grounded human story about a small dying American town that feels both relatable and relevant to today's audiences. It appears, given Roberts' statement and the cast, that this origin movie will blend elements of the first two Resident Evil games. The first game stars Chris Redfield and Jill Valentine and is set in the Spencer Mansion, a dangerous compound full of lurking horror, while Resident Evil 2 stars Claire Redfield and Leon Kennedy on a really bad first night on the job in Raccoon City. The new movie is separate from the previous Resident Evil movie series, and separate from the Netflix series, and then stuff about the Infinite Darkness thing we talked about last week, and yeah.
Are you excited for this? Are you weary of
I'm not that big of a Resident Evil fan, but I'm curious to see how it'll compare to like the other Resident Evil movies, especially if it's supposedly supposed to be a more faithful adaptation.
Well, faithful to which
supposedly
interpretation? Because you have the original interpretation, you have the Resident Evil 4 remake interpretation, you have RE5 and 6, and then you have the remakes.
Well, he said it was based on Resident Evil 1 and 2.
No, that's the story. That's what they're basing it off of. And if I'm guessing correctly, it's probably RE1 remake and RE2 remake, but then again, which interpretation? Because if they're going full horror, it might be rated R. If they're going the action horror route, it might be PG-13. And movie studios are
rated R.
The thing is, you can make it rated R, but movie studios are more in favor of PG-13 because that means they can get more eyeballs into the cinemas. And that's what they're hoping for. More eyeballs, more money. But yeah, with COVID still being a thing, and possibly will still be a thing. Who knows
how long this could take?
No, besides that, I'm thinking maybe it won't be released in theaters, but instead on a streaming service like HBO Max or Netflix, and then
Netflix,
they can
like the other
make it a rated. Yeah, then they can make it a rated R movie without much fear.
Yeah.
I'd like to say.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not.
Aren't
it's
Netflix
not that,
ratings kind of different or something?
No, or it's not that.
I feel like they're allowed to get away with a little more sometimes on streaming services.
Yes and no. An internet service doesn't have a regulatory body per se, like the MPAA or let's say the ESRB for video games. But having that said, having a content rating system does benefit you because it avoids confusion. The consumer is informed, and you won't run into anything that could be a liability for your streaming service.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how that is. Okay, moving on to the recommended content, where we list out content other than news from the past week and put the links in the description. We have The Beginner's Guide, How Characters, Combat, and Currency Work for Genshin Impact by Stacey, Henley, Brendan Graeber, and Lunaak for IGN. Genshin Impact's early numbers indicate it could be one of 2020's big success stories by Eric Van Allen for USGamer. Which Genshin Impact banners you should roll on by Kazuma Hasimoto for Siliconera. Genshin Impact's vast world is the key to its success by Josh Tolentino for Siliconera. Starting screen, no one knows where the next big game will come from by Mike Williams over at USGamer. Interview, Atelier Ryza 2, producer on Ryza's design and relationships by Jenni Lada for Siliconera. Hey Games Industry, we need to have some accountability by Jessica Howard for Paste Magazine. And why you should buy PS5 and Xbox Series X/S by Brian Shea for Game Informer. The accountability one is about crunch and how people still have a kind of mixed reaction to it. It's an interesting read. I recommend it. I'm thinking about doing an article about like crunch in the Japanese video game industry and then like how we don't really know as much about it or seemingly. Because I think that would be interesting to write about. But we'll see if that happens with everything else going on.
No, I just like to say there are already articles. I looked it up, I think yesterday or the day before yesterday. So you have some basis to work off of. So,
I was trying to look, and they were all. None of the ones I found were Japan focused. They were more just international in general.
Well, most publications are Western publications, so they don't really have an incentive to go deep into the goings on of the Japanese gaming industry.
I was surprised, like Kotaku East, or like it doesn't have something like that. Anyway, now we're going to move on to the news rundown. So we have one piece of baddish news today, so I'll let the bearer of bad news, the Shinigami, take it away.
Bankai. Also, just a quick note with that Bankai. Burn the Witch is available to stream on Crunchyroll, so you might want to check that out.
Yeah, I need to catch up on the manga first.
Well, the anime, it's broken up into 3 parts on Crunchyroll. It's a straight adaptation of the manga, so you can just watch the anime.
I mean, it's not 1 for 1, is it?
More or less. They cut out some superfluous things, so you could just watch.
I kind of just want to do both, and watch out because there may be something a project we're working on involving that.
Okay.
So look out for that. Anyways, yes.
Moving on. Genshin Impact censors Taiwan and Hong Kong and other words. This is by Wesley Yinpool for Eurogamer. Genshin Impact censors a number of words, including Taiwan and Hong Kong. The issue was brought to light by journalist Kazuma Hasimoto, who published a video on Twitter showing how the free-to-download Breath of the Wild-esque PC, PlayStation 4, and mobile game censors Taiwan and Hong Kong within its chat. And the tweet reads, due to Genshin Impact censoring the words Taiwan and Hong Kong in the in-game chat, I will no longer be posting about the game. And he follows that up with, here is a clip I just recorded just in case if this changes for whatever reason. Here is recorded proof. The entire word Kong has been censored in Genshin Impact. The post reads further. According to PC Gamer, Genshin Impact also censors the word Putin, Hitler, Stalin, and Falun Gong. In 2003, China's Ministry of Culture... I don't know what that
last one is.
It's a name of a person. I don't know who, but I mean, we could search it. Oh, it's not a person, it's a religious movement. My mistake.
Okay.
Falun Gong combines meditation and Qigong exercises with a moral philosophy. The practice emphasizes morality and the cultivation of virtue and identifies as a practice of the Buddhist school, though its teachings also incorporate elements drawn from Taoist traditions. It doesn't sound like the worst thing, but...
Yeah, but you know how the...
Okay.
I don't want to say anything about, but you know how I've heard things about the Chinese government and stuff.
No, this is a religious movement that's being censored.
No. I mean, why it would be censored?
Oh, okay.
I mean, why? Like, it might be a rule because Daniel Lamar did a whole breakdown of like, a lot of game developers
that's
have to
in the
censor
post
this
too.
Stuff.
That's in the post too. I'll continue that. In 2003, China's Ministry of Culture decreed the word Taiwan falls within the scope of, quote-unquote, endangering the unity of the nation, sovereignty, or territorial integrity. In April 2020, Eurogamer reported on how the Chinese authorities had attempted to block the sale of Nintendo Switch exclusive Animal Crossing New Horizons on the country's version of eBay because the game was being used by Hong Kong protesters and others to create politically sensitive user-generated content. Well, 3 cheers for Comrade Tom Nook.
Yeah.
Genshin Impact is from Chinese developer MiHoYo, and as such must comply with the country's laws and regulations that govern video game content. As Nico Partners analyst Daniel Ahmad states, all Chinese games censor phrases such as Taiwan and Hong Kong in order to comply with a list of banned words that cannot be used in-game or via chat. Okay, you might want to click on the article for a full breakdown on the controversy, quote-unquote.
Yeah, it's kind of like... I saw somebody break it down, like, because some people have decided not to play the game over that, but then it was like, well, at that point, aren't you just not playing any games by any Chinese developer? At least not that take place in a, or like that have an in-game chat, or, but I saw somebody on Twitter brought up a good point about, like, somebody was saying something about, like, I'm not supporting this because of this, of like the specific thing, and then somebody brought a good point. It's like, well, technically, whenever I support something from the U.S., it would mean I'm supporting all these bad things. So it's just kind of darned if you do, darned if you don't, you know? Because, we're not the government.
Not entirely.
No, I'm not phrasing it right. Like, I'm totally butchering what that person said, but
the point
they brought up a really good point.
The point you're trying to make is, if you're willing to ban a game from China because the Chinese government censors certain words or expressions. By that same measure, you might also want to ban American games or US games because of how the US government conducts itself.
Because despite what the developers believe, they might have not been able to publish it if they didn't do that,
They for sure wouldn't be able to publish it in China.
Also, it's a free game. That's the one other thing. So at least there's that.
But it doesn't. Okay, here's the thing. If you're playing a game made in the US or another Western country, like say from France, it being Ubisoft or
I was gonna say Arcane, but yeah.
Arcane or one of the British Xbox studios. Your support of a game doesn't directly translate into support of a Western government as it does with Genshin Impact, because companies in China are more or less backed by the Chinese government, and the Chinese government can interfere with basically anything the company would put out. So even if MiHoYo would say, stick it to the man, we're just gonna put Taiwan and Hong Kong in the game, the Chinese government would be like blacklisting MiHoYo from everything, and they wouldn't be able to operate.
You know what?
Yeah.
How would that work with because MiHoYo, I'm guessing they self-published.
Yeah.
So I wonder if a publisher, because I don't know how this works, but if a publisher in another country is helping with if they're helping with the translation and stuff, would they be able to circumvent that, and then for that country's version of a game be able to uncensor that?
That is more of a legal question, because it's
I don't know anybody
made
who deals with
by MiHoYo, and MiHoYo is a company situated.
I'm not saying MiHoYo specifically. I'm just saying in general.
No, but we're using MiHoYo as a good example.
Yeah,
MiHoYo is situated in mainland China.
Yeah,
the Chinese government controls what you can express as being a company from mainland China. So even if it were to be published by someone else, it would still be something that's kind of owned by the Chinese government. So you'd still have to abide by those rules. They might be a bit more lax for other territories because other regulatory bodies have other demands. But this is kind of a difficult thing to answer without any legal knowledge of MiHoYo and its structure. So if there's a good article you mentioned earlier from Pace Magazine that goes on about crunch and our moral duty when considering the things we buy and the things we play. And if we're willing to stand up for what's right, then we are going to have to make conscious decisions every time we participate in this hobby of ours. So if you're saying
it's hard, it can be hard because you don't always know.
Yeah, it is hard. If you're going to say you're going to stop playing Genshin Impact because the government is problematic, then you're also going to have to stop playing other games because other governments are problematic. It's not the same degree as badness from certain governments, but it's a thing you're going to have to consider. And with that having said, there's no ethical consumption under capitalism. So
I was going to say that.
Feel free to play it. Feel free to not play it. I won't judge you if you play Genshin Impact because to me the developers, their hands are tied. They can't do anything. But even if it's free to play games, it does good numbers. It's
Yeah.
It's a gacha game, and it's selling microtransactions, and popularity kind of correlates to big microtransaction sales. So even if it's a free-to-play game, if it's a successful game, you're successfully supporting the Chinese government in some way. So you have a lot to consider, and I'm not going to tell you what to do.
But then there's all that. But then there's also all that stuff with Tencent and all the stuff they own, and it's just a whole thing.
You're gonna have to make a choice for yourself. You're gonna have to make a choice for yourself.
Yeah.
Feel comfortable or uncomfortable, I should say.
It's don't feel bad about like being confused, because it can be a complex issue.
It's a complex moral issue. It's kind of the same boat as the Hogwarts Legacy game, where if you buy the game, you'd be supporting J.K. Rowling, who is also very problematic. So you're gonna have to make a tough decision. Like me, being a lover of manga, you've had two mangaka that were employed by Shonen Jump, or authors in this case, who have done horrible, despicable things in terms of sexual misconduct and sexual assault. Yeah, the first one, or actually three. There's the one,
because I know the Genshin one, and then
there's the more recent one of Act Age, the author, who
but that dude actually got punished for it, like that time.
Yeah, he got punished for it, but I think that's because it's a more recent case and more eyes
a lot different.
Are on the case, it being a more international thing now these days.
Who was the third one?
Well, that's the third one. The second one would be Mitsutoshi Shimabukuro, who is the author of Toriko, and he had an earlier manga with Shonen Jump, but he also had a child prostitution fine levied against him. There's also, what's he called again, from Samurai X or Rurouni Kenshin
guy, whatever his name is.
That would be Nobuhiro Watsuki, who also had child pornography fines levied against him. So Viz Media and Shonen Jump still publish their stuff. They're still profiting from their stuff. So that to me makes it difficult to buy stuff from Shonen Jump or Viz. And they're not the only ones. I'm pretty sure there are other publishers who are working with mangaka and authors who are kind of scummy people. So
it's like different countries have different rules about different things, and it gets all, when you go international, it gets all mishmashed, and who knows.
But you're gonna have to do your research, or you're gonna have to be totally ignorant of what goes on behind the scenes. But I
mean, you can still, like, you know, I forgot like the stuff that Daniel Radcliffe said, but like if somebody's work inspired you, and then like the creator turns out to be like trash, you can still like have liked that thing, like those positive experience you've had with that piece of media can't be taken away from you or something. Whatever Daniel Radcliffe said, it was really well put.
Well, the thing is, a positive experience remains a positive memory. That memory may be tainted now with full context.
That's true.
And that's just something you're gonna have to deal with.
I just think his tweet was really well done. Or not tweet, but whatever his
statement.
Anyways,
okay.
Let's move on to other news that isn't about all that. Yeah.
In other terrifying news, Silent Hill 4, The Room for PC now available. Yeah, different kind of terrifying. Silent Hill 4, The Room for PC now available via GOG. This is by Sal Romano for Gamatsu. The September 2004 release PC version of Silent Hill 4 The Room is now available via GOG for $9.99 US, Konami announced. Silent Hill 4 The Room first launched for PlayStation 2 and Xbox in June 2004, followed by PC in September 2004. You can click on the article for a full overview of the game via GOG. Never played this one. I don't think I've ever played any of the Silent Hill games, really.
So I tried once because my friend let me borrow the HD collection for PS3, like in college, and then it froze, and I never played it again.
Okay. Well, I might try this one if I ever have enough free time. Next up,
the closest thing I've played to Silent Hill is like PT, and
yeah, I've also
maybe I'll play
the
Dead by Daylight at some point.
Yeah. Okay, going on with the next topic. Scarlet Nexus's title explained by the developers. This is by Jenni Lada for Siliconera. Bandai Namco is sharing developer diaries from the team behind Scarlet Nexus. Its first segment looks at its foundation. Producer Keita Iuzuka, I think, talked with the director Kenji Anabuki and art director Kouta Ochiai about Scarlet Nexus' title and the deeper meaning behind it. Basically, the title is to emphasize connections and even the red thread of fate. Iuzuka began by going over how this is literally objects or persons connected with red lines, and how this is represented in-game and in its art. Anabuki pointed to how OSF members have the red lines coming out of their backs related to their powers and borrowing the powers of teammates. He also pointed to the Oral Cigarettes theme song having the same imagery. Ochiai then brought up the red bonds elements, alluding to how important the lines that connect you with your buddies might be. You can click on the article to find the dev diary. It's also on YouTube. I'm pretty sure you can find it if you search for it. Next up is all you.
Yeah. So Yakuza Like a Dragon: The Quest Begins trailer and screenshots. So a new trailer for Yakuza Like a Dragon came out, highlighting the English dub. It showed a bunch of the mini games. They have English voice karaoke songs, including Baka Mitai, Hell Stew, Like a Butterfly, Machine Gun Kiss, Spring Breeze, and The Future I Dreamed of. I put this in because I've seen a lot of people kind of arguing about, like, you know, the never-ending dub versus sub debate. But it's like, just do whatever you prefer. Like, I'm gonna play this dubbed because I really like the Judgment dub, and I think that they did a good job, so I trust them to do a good job with this. Some people say, like, oh, well, they don't get the inflection or the emotion quite right, or this or that. I'm like, unless you know Japanese, like, do you really know? Like, I just don't like the people who are like the sub only, all dubs are bad type of people. You know?
Well, I'll say this.
Also, accessibility options.
Yeah, it being dubbed is an accessibility feature because you might have trouble reading the subtitles, and you're better off listening to the spoken dialogue. It might be that you have a hard time keeping up with the pace of the subtitles and then following along the moving imagery. It's fine.
So I don't know how Yakuza is with subtitle size, but that could also end up being a problem. You never know, because there's no standard yet. There should be a subtitle size standard. Just because in some games subtitles are just so absurdly small.
Yeah.
I don't know how Yakuza is.
Well, I'm a normally able-bodied person, and I didn't have any issues with it. If there are any disabled people in the community or followers, listeners who have experience with Yakuza, hit us up. Let us know.
because like some subtitle stuff is just ridiculous.
Yeah, even for me.
How small they make it.
Even for me.
Yeah, no, I know. Even for like able-bodied people, it's like nobody can read this.
Yeah.
And I don't have the best hearing, so I prefer having subtitles on.
No, I get it.
All right, moving on to the next story. Monster Hunter Rise's skippable cutscenes and 8 more new details. This, I believe, is by Casey DeFreitas for IGN. I think. Hold on. Yes. Capcom featured Monster Hunter Rise prominently at Tokyo Game Show with not one, but 2 20-minute gameplay demos with developer commentary. After that showcase, we had the opportunity to interview Monster Hunter Rise producer Ryozo Sugimoto and director Yasunori Ichinose and learned even more. Here is some of the most important new information about Monster Hunter Rise for the Nintendo Switch, from skippable cutscenes to how Capcom is handling Nintendo Switch Online. The new normal naming convention. This is more of a big picture detail, but you should know Monster Hunter games with subheads like World and Rise are the new norm. Sugimoto said each new game is based around a specific theme or concept, and they decided that it would be better to give new Monster Hunters a title that reflects their focus. For example, World's introduction of large open areas and Rise's emphasis on verticality. Specifically, I asked if Rise and World were examples of a new normal naming convention, and if we were done with numbered Monster Hunters. Sugimoto responded with, yeah, each new game is based around a specific theme or concept, and we decided that it would be better for the players to understand what the game is about if we give the game a title that reflects what it's about rather than just a number. So yes, we will be doing this in the future as well. So you may not be getting a Monster Hunter 5. Probably not. Now, a Monster Hunter World 2, that's to be determined.
We'll see.
Unless they call it Monster Hunter Galaxy. You go to space.
Don't give them any ideas.
That's just Phantasy Star. I know. Rise is very much its own unique thing. Though it has shared similarities with Monster Hunter World, Sugimoto and Ichinose insisted it's very much its own unique thing and not just a carbon copy of World. Well, yeah. Ichinose was the director for Monster Hunter Generations and had been wanting to make a new portable Monster Hunter, which he began working on largely in tandem with Monster Hunter World. This game became what we know now as Monster Hunter Rise. If you try out the game, I'm sure you will notice that it is very much its own unique thing. We have some of the same quality of life improvements as World, but it is very much focused on the Switch as a platform. As for whether Rise feels more like World or more like Classic Monster Hunter, Ichinose said there are elements from Generations and from World, but Rise is going to have its own unique new things as well, some of which we are not allowed to talk about yet, so there's a lot to look forward to. Single player and multiplayer quests are separated. The more traditional method of quest separation returns in Monster Hunter Rise, but don't worry, single player progression won't affect your ability to progress in multiplayer quests and vice versa. However, past Monster Hunters did require players to progress through the single player campaign in order to unlock certain features and facilities, and we don't know if this is the case for Rise just yet. Monster Hunter Rise's cutscenes can be skipped. That's nice. This means they will no longer create a barrier to joining multiplayer quests like they did in World. Thankfully, you will always be able to watch these cutscenes at your leisure, so even if you choose to skip them initially. No, Monster Hunter Rise is not inspired by Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, because you can climb and explore freely. The team has wanted to create Monster Hunter with a lot more freedom of movement ever since they completed Generations, which was released in 2015 for the Nintendo 3DS. There's stuff about the wire bug. I'm not going to do everything.
You don't have to do everything.
Icons are being adapted to suit the Nintendo Switch's small screen. Does not work with Nintendo Voice Chat. Prowler mode is not returning, so you cannot play as just your Palico. And that's it. So yeah, a lot of good info here. Like if you want to read the rest of it. But I'm excited. I'm really excited to play it. The next story is a Capcom producer shares a new Monster Hunter Stories 2 details. This is by Onidino for Siliconera. Some new Monster Hunter Stories 2 details were revealed in various Japanese interviews released on October 7th, 2020. The game's producer, Ryozo Sugimoto, talked with Game Watch, 4Gamer, and Famitsu about the upcoming RPG. Sugimoto elaborated on the evolving battle system, appealing to a wider player base, and teased some announcements. We've translated and summarized the pertinent information below. Sugimoto says they're taking elements that were well received from the battle system in the first game and elevating them with new mechanics that'll be even more enjoyable. When asked if PvP will return from the last game, Sugimoto said to look forward to what will be announced next. Sugimoto says Capcom received overwhelming positivity from fans of the first game. Players wanted a sequel. It's very important to him that the game appeals to a larger player base, as the first game was aimed toward younger players. Sugimoto said they're making sure the narrative and the mechanics are clearly conveyed to the player through gameplay. Even though the first game and a lot of monsters players could befriend, there are even more in Stories 2. He can't say yet whether or not monsters from Ryza will be in Stories 2, but he does remind players that there will be some sort of crossover content. Sugimoto says if players experience both titles, they will get something good in each game. Describes Stories 2 as an RPG and not an action game. Players will be able to jump in without needing to play the first game. When asked if there will be returning characters or if it will be set in the same world, Sugimoto said to look forward to what will be announced next. A lot of consideration went into the visuals and the design of the characters, including their new different proportions. The decisions were primarily to make the game appeal visually to more players. They'll announce further details about the battle system soon. Good. Sugimoto says the anime of the first game was well received by families and kids. Also good. And I forgot where I read it, but it was that Monster Hunter Rise is 80% complete. Stories 2 is only 30% complete.
It's always kind of makes me chuckle when developers give estimates of completion and percentages.
Yeah,
like how would you know?
I mean, I don't know. I'm sure it's just like a guesstimate.
I guess.
But yeah, that would make sense with Monster Hunter Stories 2 having just a summer 2021 release window. And then Rise, the 20% for Rise might just be like, tweaking everything to make sure it works together okay.
Yeah,
just making sure everything like,
because it looked like a pretty much feature complete game, what we saw in the trailers. Yeah.
So they've got to check the multiplayer, check that the functions work, check this and that, and any bug fixes they might need. Oh, I didn't realize I was doing the next one too. Okay, next story is Taipei Game Show 2021 will be held both online and offline. This is by Kite Stenbuck for Siliconera. The Taipei Computer Association announced that Taipei Game Show 2021 will be held from January 28th to 31st, 2021. The event will have a hybrid format that combines both offline and online presentations. Although the first 2 days of the Taipei Game Show still has dedicated business zone for B2B booths, the B2C player zone, where visitors can try out game demos, will be open for all 4 days. For the first time in event history, the business zone will also have an online presentation format so that people in the gaming industry can interact from anywhere in the world. The Asia Pacific Game Summit will also be streamed worldwide. The 2020 Taipei Game Show was canceled due to the pandemic, originally slated to be held February 6th to 9th, 2020. The organizers initially moved the schedule to summertime on June 25th to 28th, 2020. The event ended up getting canceled entirely on March 25th, 2020 due to the spread of the pandemic. Taipei Game Show has been getting more spotlight in recent years because major Japanese game publishers use the event to publish new game information for not only Chinese-speaking regions, but also Japan. In the now-canceled 2020 show, Bandai Namco was originally due to announce gameplay info for the Idolmaster Starlit season and Mobile Suit Gundam Extreme vs. Max Boost On. Sega was also due to reveal a game at the event. So that is why I included that story.
Okay. So things to look forward to. All right, next up we have Eternal Arcadia. Kenji Huruta says sequel or HD remaster depends on Sega. Wait, let me repeat that. Kenji Hiruta. Yeah, that's right. Okay, this is an article by Iyane Agosa for DualShockers. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Fans around the world are still waiting for a new Skies of Arcadia game project 20 years after the initial Dreamcast release. Eternal Arcadia, known as Skies of Arcadia outside Japan, is celebrating its 20th anniversary this October. This October 5th, 2020. I guess phrased weirdly. It's been exactly 20 years since the JRPG was first released in Japan on Dreamcast. While a slightly different version launched a bit later on GameCube, Skies of Arcadia never received a new game project. Many fans around the world are still awaiting a sequel, remastered, or anything. Over on Twitter, Kenji Hiruta, ex-developer on Skies of Arcadia at Sega, often shares his wish to bring back the franchise, discussing with fans. For the game's 20th anniversary, he most notably noted a sequel, HD remaster, or a new game project depends on Sega. However, he's working on something not game-related, but still Skies of Arcadia related.
What could it be?
Maybe a manga? Maybe a spin-off series? Because a lot of the Skies of Arcadia folks are working... Sequel? Sure, maybe. As I was going to say, many of the Skies of Arcadia staff are working on Valkyria Chronicles and Sakura Wars.
Yeah,
so
they're in...
maybe guest
Skies of
appearances.
Arcadia characters are in one of...
Maybe a crossover game. Who knows? But yeah, Skies of Arcadia is a very kind of cult classic now. Because despite it being talked about so much in fan circles, you don't see much movement on the side of Sega. But with Sega kind of cranking up their presence and production these past few years, months, maybe this is a sign of good things. Maybe, fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Come on, Sega, I don't want to emulate your game. Just give me something. Throw me a bone.
Yeah, it's super expensive.
Yeah. Okay, next up we have Koei Tecmo says... Oh, did you have something to say?
No, it's just like, that's kind of the only way people can play it right now unless they want to spend quite a bit of money.
Yeah. And I don't know anyone who's willing to spend that much money. Okay. Next up, we have Koei Tecmo commits to no Atelier Ryza 2 censorship outside Japan. This is by Jenni Lada for Siliconera. Koei Tecmo took to Twitter on October 6, 2020 to reassure people that they will see all of Ryza when she returns this year. Essentially, the company confirmed there will be no Atelier Ryza 2 censorship outside Japan. The game released in other regions will have all the same content as the one Japan will get this December. This all came up apparently due to concerns over footage shared during the Tokyo Game Show 2020 online event in September 2020. People noticed the Japanese trailer had differences, quote unquote. The company wanted to assure people that things will not be censored in the West. I guess? Okay. I don't know what to make of this because to me it seems like much ado about anything.
Yeah, I don't know what was censored.
Or what appeared to be censored, because they said comparing the two trailers, the one from Japan and the one from the West, they had differences. But I don't know what to make of this.
Is it like a costume thing?
Well, let's just say Ryza's character design. Well, Fairy Tail wasn't that much censored.
No, Fairy Tail wasn't censored at all, I don't think.
Yeah, but what would you censor? That's the question. But I was going to say Ryza Ryza and other female characters are pretty healthy, to say the least. And having played the first game, I don't know what else would be censored or how they would convey part 2. I don't know. It just seems like such a weird thing.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. We have Genshin Impact has plans for new characters, locations, and next gen, but not Xbox. This is by Joe Scrubbles for IGN. Genshin Impact developer MiHoYo is working on more characters, locations, and next gen versions of the game, but has no plans for an Xbox version. Speaking to IGN Japan, a MiHoYo spokesperson explained that it considers Genshin Impact a live service game, and the current version is only a portion of the content. If I'm not mistaken, there's supposed to be 7 areas in total, and so far we've only had 2-3 areas.
I believe
we'll
it's
continue
2.
developing even more. Yeah, 2.
2.
We will continue developing even more content and gameplay while also releasing updates and optimizations. So the product that goes online isn't the final version, but rather the first step. I'm looking up the Xbox thing. Okay, the game was released on PC, PS4, and mobile with a Switch version already confirmed. However, MiHoYo is already working on other platforms. And the quote states, "We already have plans in regards to Genshin Impact on next-gen consoles, and we will update everyone accordingly at a future date." Those won't necessarily be straight ports either, with the spokesperson making clear that we are also in discussion over future visual improvements as well. However, the one area that Genshin Impact won't seem to be expanding into is Microsoft consoles, with MiHoYo saying, "We currently don't have any plans for an Xbox version of the game. It is not clear if that's down to an exclusivity deal, Xbox lower presence in Asian markets, or other factors." I think it's the latter, lower presence in Asian territories. But yeah. I mean, they have Phantasy Star Online. They'll be fine.
Yeah. At least they have something. And, they always could get it later. Who knows? Alright, next. I should have put this story up earlier after the Skies of Arcadia thing. But Sega talks about future mini-consoles after Game Gear Micro. This is by Kite Stenbuck for Siliconera once again. Sega's Yosuke Okunari talked about the future of Sega's mini-consoles in the latest issue of Famitsu magazine. With the Game Gear Micro just released in Japan, Okunari mulled over the next mini-console project should Sega decide to make another one. Here are some highlighted quotes by Yosuke Okunari from the interview. "For the next mini, we are considering everything that has been imagined by everyone." Whoa. "Of course, it doesn't mean we can realize all of them. We are also thinking about projects that nobody has imagined. The projects are moved by a substantial amount of money, so we're working first on the one that, realistically speaking, has the highest possibility. The Game Gear Micro is only sold domestically in Japan. When we do the next one, I feel like the project scope will be much bigger as we gaze upon the world, so we won't be able to release it at this time, the next year or 2 years after the Mega Drive Mini. We can't make it that quickly. I think for the next one, we may go with a concept close to the Mega Drive Mini, which would be the Genesis Mini internationally, I think. If I have to say some names, it could be an SG-1000 Mini. I don't know what SG-1000 is. Or a Dreamcast Mini. Look, here's what I'll say. If you make a Dreamcast Mini, don't do the thing you did with the Game Gear.
Which would be?
Make several different versions with a few games each. It's like, oh, the RPG edition or the Sonic Adventure edition that just has the Sonic games.
I don't think they do that. If the Dreamcast would be like the Sega Mega Drive.
Yeah, it would be more
mini,
the whole collection.
Yeah,
because it wouldn't be split like that.
I think the Game Gear kind of lends itself to smaller collections, and that's why. But
yeah, I think
who knows.
The problem with the Dreamcast Mini, though, at least from what I can think of, is that a lot of the best games on that were on Dreamcast they got enhanced ports on later systems that were better, or like had quality of life improvements, like, you know, Skies of Arcadia and Sonic Adventure 1 and 2, and like there are some other ones that I'm not. Jet Set Radio, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, Jet Set Radio Future, etc.
But you know, I'm always excited for a re-release of C, man.
Sure. Just you then. But yeah.
But no, a Dreamcast Mini would be cool, but you know, like you said, we wouldn't see it for a couple of years at least. But at least they're thinking of the international audience this time.
Well, the Dreamcast was so much more of a bigger thing. It was the last.
We had the Game Gear here. The Game Gear came out internationally.
Sure, but the Dreamcast is what was probably a bigger thing.
More recognizable internationally.
The reach of Sega back then, at that point, was far wider than the Game Gear one. It's kind of like a precursor to the Xbox we eventually got in the West. So there's a lot of love to go around for the Dreamcast. I hope it makes a return. Okay, next up we have
that'd be cool.
Xbox's Phil Spencer isn't sure 8K will ever be standard in video games. This is by Matt Purslow for IGN. Xbox boss Phil Spencer has said that he isn't sure if 8K resolution will ever be standard for video games, calling it aspirational technology. Talking to Wired, Spencer said, "I think 8K is aspirational technology. The display capabilities of devices are not really there yet. I think we're years away from 8K being, if it ever is, standard in video games." Spencer's comments come despite the Xbox Series X being able to support 8K output. However, while it may technically be able to push video at a resolution of 7,680 times 4,320, there are more factors to consider. Chiefly being if anyone even has an 8K television or monitor to view such visuals on. According to Wired's chat with Liz Hamlin, head of gaming engineering at Xbox, Microsoft's data suggests that 4K television adoption is less than what publishers may think, and so that suggests 8K adoption is still years away at least. We haven't even mastered 4K yet. So baby steps, industry. We'll get to 8K when it's when we're ready.
Also, I just wanted to mention this at some point in the podcast. If you're looking for a 4K TV and you don't need like a huge one, they're going on sale at like Best Buy and Amazon during their weird early October sales next week. So look out for those deals if you just want a better screen for like next gen gaming or whatever.
Or you could just wait till Thanksgiving or.
Well, Best Buy is doing an early Black Friday sale specifically, so I don't know. We don't know how certain things. Yeah,
there'll be another Black Friday deal to count your chickens, bet your life. It's gonna happen.
We'll see.
Yeah. Okay. Next up we have Phil Spencer again by way of Matt Purslow from IGN. Phil Spencer says xCloud on console is on the long list of things to do. Xbox boss Phil Spencer has said that he and Microsoft want to bring xCloud to Xbox consoles and PC, but that it is just a bit further down a long list of cool things the xCloud team is working on. I hope that means a Switch mode thing, please. Talking to a fan on Twitter who quote tweeted a post from insiders Ben Gilbert questioning why Xbox Game Pass doesn't stream to consoles and PCs, Spencer clarified that the xCloud team does intend to bring streaming service to console and PC. Yeah. One day. Maybe soon.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Maybe. We'll see. Anything could happen.
I think what's going to happen is... Well, no. Because Microsoft might team up with NVIDIA to kind of conquer the streaming landscape on PC. In any case, they're doing far better than what Stadia is doing, so who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows?
Next story is Nintendo will now allow Japanese consumers to purchase IARC-rated titles through the eShop. This is by Kazuma Hasimoto for Siliconera. Nintendo will now allow Japanese consumers to purchase IARC-rated titles through the Nintendo eShop. However, this will only extend to digital downloads. Physical releases will still need to obtain a Zero rating. Developers are looking to deliver titles through the Nintendo eShop will no longer be required to obtain a Zero rating for digital releases. There are still some stipulations to this, however. Developers that plan to release mature-rated games will still be required to obtain a certain Zero rating even for digital releases. The International Age Rating Coalition, or IARC, is an initiative by members of the ESRB, PEGI, and USK. I don't know what that one is. To name a few, that have streamlined the process of acquitting content ratings for games. Examinations for ratings through the IARC are free, meaning this can help independent developers curve some of their development costs for digital-only releases. Since Zero is not part of the IARC, developers would need to submit their product for review separately. Nintendo isn't the only developer allowing IARC-rated titles to hit their digital storefronts. Microsoft is also part of this initiative. Games released digitally with IARC ratings through Microsoft storefronts are available to purchase without the Zero rating. In an article by Automaton Media, the breakdown of this new initiative states that Nintendo had changed their policy in relation to the publishing of IARC rating games onto the Nintendo eShop in September. So that's good for them. I didn't know there was an international ratings board.
I've seen them float by every now and then, but I never really delved too deep into the nuts and bolts of everything.
Look, whatever makes it, if stuff makes stuff easier for indie developers, that's great.
I concur.
Or just developers in general. Next story is Final Fantasy XIV patch 5.35 while players taking back the Bosjan Southern Front once again by Kazuma Hasimoto for Siliconera. New information about the upcoming Final Fantasy XIV 5.35 patch has been shared through the official website. This includes renders of an enemy that players will be able to encounter in the Bosjan Southern Front. Players will aid the Bosjan resistance in pushing back the 4th Legion. Additionally, a screenshot was shared hinting that someone who looks suspiciously like Rowena, I don't know who that is, may possibly of the upcoming Sky Steel crafting quest. Wow. The Bosjan Southern Front will be part of the Save the Queen Blades of Gunhildr relic weapon storyline. The scenario is written by Final Fantasy Tactics director and writer Yasumi Matsuno. Ooh. Another image showed off a new mount that will be added with the Final Fantasy XIV patch 5.35, which looks like a... What is that, a new Magitech armor? Oh, I don't think that's the mount. That might be something you fight. Wait, which one is the mount? Oh, it's a weird lion. It's a flying lion thing.
Okay.
So that's cool. Final Fantasy XIV going strong with those updates. Yokai Watch event's still going until 5.4.
All right. Next up, also
so make sure to do it if you want those weapons.
We have Final Fantasy XVI basic development and scenario production already complete. Most staff are currently working remotely. This is by Sal Romano for Gamatsu. Basic development and scenario production for Final Fantasy XVI are already complete, according to a new recruitment page for the title on Square Enix's careers website. The quote reads, "We have already completed basic development and scenario production and are continuing to create large-scale resources and build boss battles while expanding our various development tools," the website reads. It continues, "Also, most of our staff are carrying out their work remotely." Yeah. So they're kind of now ramping up production to finish off the odds and ends. The grunt work kind of stuff. So we might be seeing Final Fantasy 16 sooner than later, as I kept telling you people.
Yeah. But
What? What's got you so in a tizzy?
No, I was kind of distracted by something. That's why. It's kind of like, yeah, it's still gonna take a while, but like,
yeah,
but it's not gonna be. It's not a 2035 game. Hopefully, probably not.
It's definitely not a 2035 game.
Okay, so our last news story before we get to the main topic, or last pair of news stories, because they are related. Weirdly. So we got a second animated trailer for Tabe Oja. Did you watch this?
No.
Oh, well, you should, because I got it wrong. It's not that these food spirits... Okay, so it's that... So, like, there are these demon things that possess people and make them super hungry, and then the people make the Tabe Oja, the cooking warriors, they do a special cooking thing, and they awaken the Tabegame that dwell within heavily cuisine, and then they fight the demon that came out, the weird little demon that came out of that person, and it highlighted the curry rabbit, who's great. Like you said earlier. It seems like they're going all in with this being gonna be a game and an anime and maybe a manga too and toys and stuff. Again, we don't know if this will have an international release, but I really hope it does. Okay. Thinking about importing the Japanese version even, because it comes out in December or has a December release window.
Sure, but would you even be able to play it without it being translated fully?
I can try, darn it.
Sure, sure.
And then similarly, because it's another Bandai Namco property, but this is actually from last week. This is from Anime News Network by Crystalline Hodgkins. Saikyo Kazmi's Mode anime premieres online. TV airing debuts October 9th. Bandai Namco Pictures began streaming the first half of the first episode of Saikyo Kami's Mode anime on Monday on YouTube. So the franchise has the theme of sumo, taiko drumming, and music. Characters in the franchise have both a Su mode and a Kazmi's mode, and can transform between them. Characters in the franchise battle to become a Yokozuna. So it's like, so imagine Taiko Drum Master mixed with like a Monster Rancher type game. So the trainers each have one monster, and to give them orders, they use a taiko drum.
Okay.
And the reason I brought this up is the franchise also includes an arcade game. The game will be Bandai's first rhythm card game for its Data card arcade game machines. The game will debut this fall. But you have to take into account that Bandai Namco also does Taiko Drum Master, right? So I'm wondering if they're potentially going to make a Switch game out of this, because they already have the controller.
They could, but it's kind of super niche. I don't think it will happen, but it could happen.
I think it could happen. I mean, there already has an arcade game, but it's just something I noticed that like I didn't notice before, and I'm like, that sounds fun. Okay. There's a couple like, I think they're episodes, like 10, 11-minute episodes on YouTube that you can check out. They're not subtitled, but they're interesting. Okay, so moving on to the main topic, the PS5 Teardown that came out, and a bunch of PS5 news. So, there was they took the PS5 apart, and now nobody's getting a PS5 anymore because they broke the main one. No, I'm just kidding. That's not how it works. They were just giving a detailed specs and everything. There's a very detailed article on IGN by Matt Purslow. I don't want to go over the whole thing, but it has all the details like the USB ports and the type of USB ports and each part. And the interesting thing is that the sides of the console can be slipped out. So a lot of people are theorizing that there are going to be a lot of custom covers in the coming months once PS5s are in the wild.
It's possible. I can definitely see it happening.
With the covers off, you can access two ports for the dust filters that run along the intakes. Otori specifically notes that these ports can be used with a vacuum cleaner, which will allow users to easily clean the filters with a household item. But they also said it might not get everything, but it can help. With the side panels off, users can also access a metal plate, under which is a bay for an SSD drive, should you wish to expand your storage. And then why the PS5 is so big is so it can stay cool and quiet, because I don't know if PS4 Pros get hot, but they get loud.
Yeah, that's true.
The entire rear side of the console is an exhaust port, a huge 120mm by 45mm cooling fan capable of drawing in air from both sides, the dust catching ports, a liquid metal thermal conductor to keep the CPU and GPU cool, a large heatsink using a heat pipe that achieves the same performance as a vapor chamber. And then we do have a question here. From friend of the show Sarah. She said, looking at the two systems and how they PS5 and Series X and how they tear down, which do you think will be easier to clean/dust? The PS5 has a nice vacuum slot, but even Sony says it won't get everything, whereas Xbox's design is like easy to build Lego sets compared to Sony's complex layout, just because she provided an image too that where the Xbox, when it's taken apart, it looks like it just kind of can stack together almost.
Yeah. It's hard to say because
it's hard.
Even though
we don't have either of them in our hands.
No, besides that, Microsoft did show us a teardown video months ago, but we don't have any confirmation if that would be user friendly. So let's just say you want to swap out parts, or you don't have internal storage that you can swap out, but let's say you could. Would getting to that part be easy, or would it be a hassle to open it up, try to work around warranty, try to avoid messing things up in the internals just to get to a certain part? That's not known. The PS5, on the other hand, is built with that in mind. So there is a slot for internal SSDs. They haven't really announced which SSDs will be supported, but with that and the dust slot being prominent in the video, and it being said, hey, you can use this to remove the dust that accumulates, I think the PS5 will be an easier time to get into. What do you think?
I don't know. I kind of think just like, I guess we'll see. You know, like now, my PS4, like I've never taken apart my PS4. Although where I am, like dust kind of accumulates, so I have to wipe it down every so often. And I don't really see a noticeable difference in like how well it runs or anything.
Well,
so it'll be interesting to see how these consoles compare when you can clean them a bit easier. Well, at least the PS5.
The PS4 is something you can take apart. It's not that hard, but
I just don't want to mess with it like that.
Yeah, you don't want to mess with it. You definitely don't want to mess with it. You definitely want to bring it to a certified technician or someone who has a lot more know-how about these things.
Yeah.
Having that said, I think the Xbox will be a bit more friendly to fidgeting about, because Microsoft has a history of being a software/hardware company focused on PCs. And PCs, despite what you may hear, despite the memes bandied about it, PCs aren't that difficult to work with, and the parts aren't that difficult to put together. So I'm guessing the Xbox might not be that difficult either. But we'll only know once we have these things in our hands, once qualified people far more qualified than us have gotten their hands on this and given us the lowdown. But
yeah, so I was going to get into the next thing, which was PS5 Japanese hands-on videos, hardware controller, Astro's Playroom, Balan Wonderworld, Devil May Cry 5 Special Edition, and Godfall. And this is from Gamatsu. It's by Sal Romano, but it has a bunch of other YouTube videos and sources. Japanese media and several popular Japanese YouTube creators have gone up first hands-on videos of PlayStation 5, including a first look at the actual hardware and DualSense wireless controller and live gameplay of the aforementioned games. Oh yeah, that's right. The X button is now is the official confirmation button of the PlayStation 5 worldwide. While this was the standard for PlayStation users outside of Japan and Asia, the confirmation button was previously the circle button in those regions. Well, depending on game. A Sony Interactive Entertainment Japan and Asia spokesperson implied that this was to avoid situations where the confirmation button would change when operating the system and playing games from other countries. Oh, okay. So they support importing.
Sure.
Additionally, 4Gamer.net and Dengeki Online reported that the PS5's hardware is low noise. Has low noise. 4Gamer.net played Godfall in a room that was about 30 degrees Celsius, 86 degrees Fahrenheit. The wind from the exhaust port was gentle, and you could barely hear anything that sounded like a fan spinning. Dengeki Online said that the quietness of the fan was more of a surprise than the high-speed loading. And was there more? No, he just has there's a link to a ton of YouTube videos on here. I'll put it in the description. Let's see. And then we have, there was that jab that Xbox took at the PS5's vertical horizontal process, now deleted.
Is it deleted?
They deleted the tweet, I'm pretty sure. But it was because you have to unscrew the what's it called? The stand to put the PlayStation 5 on its side correctly. And then they Xbox UK tweeted how to switch the Xbox Series X from vertical to horizontal, and it's just, just move it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a poking fun back at the from like the 2013 E3, the this is how you share games on PS4.
I mean, I wouldn't call that a jab. It's just It's just.
Oh, that's what the article just says. Playful jab.
Yeah, and it's more like a innocent goof, like you're poking fun at it. It's not a big deal. I'm not seeing it on the
I think they deleted
Xbox account.
It's on Xbox. It would be on Xbox UK.
Yeah, so I'm looking that up.
But I saw somebody. Yeah, Xbox. Yeah, there was an update right here. Xbox has now deleted its post at PS5's expense, which you can see below.
Well, people were probably making a big deal out of it and saying like, "Oh, look at Xbox clowning on PlayStation," and they probably want to avoid that, being that console wars are silly, and there are better things to do with your time and more important stuff to worry about in the world. So
definitely,
they rightfully took it down. It's fine.
Also, I'm going to switch these last two parts of this story, of this main topic. Also, Sony expects PS5 to sell more than PS4 did in its first fiscal year. Sony Interactive Entertainment CEO Jim Ryan has said he believes more PlayStation 5 consoles will be sold in its first fiscal year than the amount of PS4s sold in the same period. Talking to Korean site Naver, Ryan predicted that PS5 will sell more in its first fiscal year than we sold in the first fiscal year at the time of the PS4 launch. For reference, between its launch in November 2013 and the end of the fiscal year in April 2014, the PS4 sold more than 7 million units. That means that Sony is forecasting more than 7 million PS5 sales before next April, despite the current pandemic economy. Previously, there have been rumors that the pandemic had disrupted supply to the point that only 4 million consoles would be able to be produced this fiscal year. But with Sony seemingly confident about selling over 7 million, it appears that rumors hold no water. That rumor holds no water. Another report has suggested that the high price point of the console would affect demand, but Sony appears to not be worried about that. I think part of it is like, you got to remember the PS4 launch. I don't remember what the PS4 launch was, but I don't remember it being great. Not that the PS5 launch is that great, but you also have to take into account there's the backwards compatibility and the free upgrades, and PS4 didn't have that.
That is true.
That's really all I can think about that.
It's tough to say. It's unprecedented times. There's still a pandemic out there. People might want to allocate money to other stuff with the holidays.
Yeah.
We'll see.
And then this last part, which is really interesting because I had never heard of this before. In Japan, Sony's Nazne PlayStation Hub is returning. This is by Brian Ashcraft for Kotaku. Remember Nazne? The Japan-only DVR was released back in 2012 primarily for the PlayStation 3 and Vita. Later, it got an update for the PS4, but was finally faded out last year. Now, Famitsu reports that Nazne is coming back and will once again go on sale in Japan in 2021. However, this time it's not a Sony-branded product, but coming from electronics maker Buffalo with Sony's corporation. The unit itself is now labeled Buffalo. The DVR can still connect with PS4s, smartphones, and tablets. It will even feature a Torne TV app, the software that appeared on the original Nazne. So, that's just an interesting little tidbit.
Okay.
I don't think... It's interesting that it could connect to PS4, and there's no mention of it being able to connect to PS5.
I mean, there are plenty of PS4s out there.
That's true. But, like,
yeah.
I wonder if they'll just add that function later, or what. It was just an interesting thing, because I didn't know PlayStation had any kind of DVR thing. I don't think most people knew that outside of Japan.
It might be Japan specific, so I don't think we have to worry about it.
It is, yeah. I just thought it was an interesting little tidbit to add while we were talking about PlayStation stuff.
Okay.
But I think that we are done for this episode.
Yeah.
as always, remember to be good to each other. Also, if I should have said this at the beginning, but please support our friends at GameSpot and GameSpot After Dark. They do that great podcast. Well, that and Generation Next, because they've been going through layoffs right now, and it's hard for everyone over there. And we've had some guests on from over there, and they've been great. So, please support them if you can, because layoffs suck for everybody.
Yeah.
And as always, be kind to each other.
Yeah.
Stay safe. Wear a mask. Wash your hands. Watch anime. Play games. And we'll see you next week. Maybe with a guest. Who knows?
Okay. Goodbye, everybody.
All right. Well, bye. Matane.